Hello, coaches. Welcome to our session today, session 21. And we have Victoria joining our live session today. It seems like it's only Victoria and I today. So we are going to have a lot of time discussing and addressing things at a deeper level. So I'm excited and welcome all those who are also watching the video later. So let's begin. Victoria, would you like to share an update and also what comes to you in terms of our last session? We addressed designing a plan of action. So what comes to you?
Okay, well, thanks for those questions. First of all, this is my last session in my cycle. This CADP was one that I applied for, and it's just amazing that the year flew by. So that's my first kind of question that, oh my God, this is the last one. It feels like only yesterday the start of the first one in watching those videos. In terms of updates, it's only been a week, so not much has happened since our last session, but we're getting some new business ideas, new potential courses that to do to kind of wrap up my business package. And soon I'll also start with a business incubator on my spots. Very, very happy with that. So I'm also literally planning for my resting over Christmas periods. I work with several of our peers, so colleagues, on making sure I plan well for my rest and to get the work done. So I'm very grateful for their support as well. Yeah. So that's about the updates and about our last session and kind of insights for that in terms of action. Uh, it was very useful because I think I'm more consciously discussing actions with my clients this our last session. So this week I haven't had that many sessions to practice after we had that last one, but it's just good to have that kind of almost like in my brain put at shelves, okay, this is how it is. Because before I was doing that, but it was more of like I call it like a challenge here and there. So now I have more structure. I'm very, very much looking forward to talk more about accountability and support system for our clients today. And I feel like that's kind of a natural wrap up. I don't know what's going to happen in the next few sessions when I'm live, but to me, it felt like, okay, these are the last markers. So it's cool. So natural. Yeah.
Great, Victoria. Glad to hear the updates. And also, you're right. So it's like we have been kind of building it up, and accountability is the one that like wrapping everything up and kind of sealing everything because this is where most people fall behind, not achieving goals because they know all the steps, but there is no accountability. So we don't really achieve results. And this is a very important aspect, especially looking at from CADP perspective, because some of you are going to be working with minors and you know what it means. Accountability means nothing to they don't, it doesn't naturally come to some children, and this is why we need to in a way that role model this behavior so that they learn to take self accountability. So this means that we are raising individuals who know how to take self accountability. Imagine how amazing, wonderful this world would be, how effective people would be in any settings. It can be family, organizational, corporate, whatever it is. When people learn how to provide self accountability, everything else in the system becomes much easier and effective for everyone else around. So this is the deeper purpose, coaches. This is not really helping a parent or a minor to set accountability for their action planning and goal setting. Yes, this is the surface level goal, but if we really take a step back and provide the elevated vision and what is the deeper meaning of this accountability, especially looking at from embodiment of coaching mindset, what we really help our clients do is breaking free from any codependency behavior that they have. And we know that when we say codependency, I'm not going too deep into psychological facts, but we know that we sometimes develop certain codependency on other people. So this is why it's important that we address accountability at a comprehensively, so that we also understand as a coach where is the boundary, because it's not also healthy for us to create a dependency in terms of accountability, the coach client relationship. Because for me, it's very important that my client work through, let's say, maximum I intend to work with the client is a year, because that it takes about that much time for a person to create that true transformation within. I don't promise to deliver results that it's not. We always talk about this. It's not cookie cutter. It's not quick results that we are providing. So within a year, I want to help my client embody this skill set that I'm using to coach them, so that after a year the parent already know how to coach their child. They know how to coach themselves, so that they don't have to work with me for the rest of their life. I don't want to work with clients for the rest of my life, because that means I'm probably failing as a coach, or not to blame it myself, but there is maybe a gap that we need to evaluate why the client keeps coming back. Of course, there are clients that they are so in love with the work that you share with them, and they also like you as a person, and they see real value, so they want to keep coming back. But in my case, coaches, I always take a step back and see, why does the client, is it genuinely they are so growth oriented that they want to keep working, or is it because they have developed a certain, maybe they receive certain validation by working with me, or they receive this additional something that is lacking in their life, and I want to explore that and address that, so they don't have to keep coming back to me to fulfill a lack, right? So this is what I'm trying to say. So uh, the very first thing that we need to understand when we say accountability, it's not just accountability for action setting per se. There is a deeper meaning to it. So I'm going to start sharing the screen now. Victoria, please unmute yourself and speak, because it's just the two of us. And yeah, it's good that we can um, chat as I share the screen, right? Okay. All right. So I actually can't believe this is the 21st session already. It's been like I do feel like it's been just 5 minutes since we started. Anyway, also, coaches, at this point, before we move forward, I want to, I forgot to mention this at the beginning. As I mentioned last week, also, we are hosting a grand celebration to recognize your hard work, your effort, your energy that you put into this extraordinary profession that you have chosen. And we are planning to host this award ceremony in Bangkok, Thailand, so that we can have a beautiful reunion here, because it's like a hub and everyone can travel into Asia, and it's a very vibrant country, those who haven't been here. So if it's a possibility, please do join us, and we would be thrilled to have you here. Victoria?
Yeah, I really I did want to do something. Wanted to ask maybe on part of just some colleagues. For example, I think I wouldn't be able to join live in Bangkok, but I wanted to ask if there would be like a participating over a live video kind of screen with all of us who can join in that way. Do
Thank
you
you for
know?
the idea. I will discuss this with Fernando now, and maybe have a live broadcast, so that, like on Zoom or something, so that you can also be part of it.
Yeah, that just like I didn't know if you planned for it, but you haven't. If you haven't, it would be lovely. I mean, I think it was still all of us who cannot participate, who cannot be there live, you would feel I would feel that I'm a part of that still. And I think it also kind of helps understand how many we are, even if not everyone can arrive at the spot.
Absolutely. That's a great idea, Victoria. Thank you. You always plant really good seeds in my head. Thank you. Um, all right. So, having said that, coaches, once again, if you have the possibility to join, please do so, so that it would be wonderful to see you in person. All right. So now, as we dive into the session today, as we already discussed, we are diving deeper into our competency 8, facilitating clients' growth, specifically strategizing a plan of action, and then building on to accountability and progress tracking. So having said that, last week we had a combined session. So we had students from PCMC, Professional Coaching Mastery Certification, and then we also had our CADP students joining. So you also get to see the reason sometimes we have also these combined sessions, coaches, for you to understand as a general coach how sometimes the limit that you operate, and then as a in specialization, that you can reach to bigger and much wider audience. Doesn't mean that being a general coach doesn't give you that wide audience, but it means that your skill set is limited, so that choosing a niche would be also general, and there will be more coaches offering the same type of coaching that you do. For example, if you look at, and nothing good or bad, right? I'm just speaking about the specialization advantages that you may have because of the specialization, and also especially in terms of building business and establishing yourself as a successful coach, because that's also part of your profession, right? It's not just only skill development; it also it's a matter of developing your business. So for a general coach, there will be so many leadership coaches already. There are so many executive coaches already, because it's a wide it's a big pool, right? So there are many coaches doing that. At the same time, if you look at parenting and child development, you are the pioneers in this field, and you are just only still a very few number of coaches with the ICF accreditation. So the over and over, the reason why I'm saying these coaches, you are not only gaining a coaching certification, you are gaining a specialization in a niche that is a high demand, right? So really, when you develop your business, I truly invite you to remember that you are truly a qualified, certified coach to address this. So when you put yourself out there, highlight that credibility, that the certification, the specialization that you hold, and also think about narrowing down your niche in a way that you can use these strengths to your highest potential, right? So that's a side note, and then let's come back to our lesson today. So we are looking at section D, cultivating learning and growth, specifically facilitating clients' growth. So if you look at the competency definition, is coach partners with the client to transform learning and insight into action, promotes clients' autonomy in the coaching process. So last week we addressed PCMC and CADP students together. They explored what it means to them, these competencies. How do they understand it from their perspective? And today, coaches, specifically, let's look at the PCC markers applying, facilitating clients' growth. How do you do this? Because at the end of the day, we always say that competency is the guideline and markers is what you need to demonstrate. So it's important you understand this is what the competency mean, but this is what it looks like when I demonstrate it, practically do it. Coaching is practical. There is no point of learning all the competency in the world if you don't know how to demonstrate it, right? So let's look at point number 1. Coach invites or allows the client to explore progress toward what the client wanted to accomplish in the session. And of course, I'm not expecting a right or wrong answer. We are just only exploring. And also, Victoria, only if you have any insights. If not, I'm more than happy to go on and explain.
Sure. Is this a question of how to do this? I just maybe
Yes. So
question.
no worries.
Okay.
So if you are to look at the marker 1,
Yeah.
what does it look like demonstrating this one?
So for me, again, just speaking from my own experience, though it's not so extensive, by the somewhere closer to the end of the session, not necessarily, but usually that's how it is, I would go for a little assessment. So, for example, ask clients, how do you feel with progressing towards meeting the goal established at the beginning of a session? Or maybe if it's one of the following sessions, we have an overarching goal, I would see, so how do you feel we're making progress? Or how does, for example, alternatively phrased, how does this fit with our overall goal we plan to for the session or for our goal? So that the client can connect where we are right now with, that thing that we said we're working towards.
Very,
That's
very
the part
good.
the coach invites. The coach allows. I haven't had the client do that loop, and for me to allow them to speak about that. I mean, it naturally happens, but not in such a structured way for trying to actually say, that's a goal. And let's say like now we're, I don't know, 60% now towards that, or we're hitting a milestone already. So mostly it's invitation in that form of question.
Very true. Victoria, I think that's a very comprehensive answer that I would like to build onto. Now, I like, first of all, how you differentiate the inviting and allowing, which is very true. You're absolutely right. When you begin the coaching engagement, they don't know what goal setting is. They don't know what accountability is. So they are, of course, not going to say like exactly what you said. Oh, I think I'm progressing. They don't even know that. They don't even know that they are progressing towards anything, right? Because they're so caught up in that moment. They're so caught up in, oh, this is my problem, and that's where they are. They don't really understand what the process is. This is at the beginning. Now, let's say you work with a client for like more than 3 months, and they get used to the process. Like, for example, when we say accountability, I never take, I mean, of course, I do take notes for myself, but I tell the client the notes that I'm taking, it's for myself. If you want to take notes, if you want to remember something, if something is important to you, please feel free to take your notes, because I'm not going to be sending you notes. I already say that because I like to create that independence. I like to provide that autonomy to the clients also, even the minor clients. I invite them to take their own notes, because, especially if, of course, the time that they are able to write, and we need to have in mind the age, everything. But as you know, that I don't work with very young clients anymore. I work with children about 10, because it takes much less energy for me, especially given where I am in my professional journey. Right now, I don't have that kind of time to invest with a lot of younger children, right? So you also need to be very mindful of those things, coaches. How much energy do I have right now? Because you know that it's going to take a lot of energy and effort to work with a younger client, because they are still emotionally developing. So you need to hold a lot of space for them. You need to have a lot of patience. You need to be really on your feet and be very creative. Sometimes nothing we teach here will be applicable. You can only come up, have the structure, but you will have to be so on the spot and very like spontaneous and creative. And as you can imagine, it can take a lot of energy out of you, right? So also be mindful how much energy I have. So coming back to the point, um, even with minor clients, inviting them to take those notes so that they know. So the reason why I'm sharing this, after few months, after some time, when they get used to the process, you will see you don't even have to remind them to take notes anymore. They already take the notes. They already come prepared. They because they get to, this is what ICF emphasize on: embodiment of coaching mindset. If you notice, almost every competency focus on promoting clients autonomy. We do not hold hands. This is why, coaches, we do not provide also suggestions, because when the more suggestions we provide, especially at the beginning, the more clients get used to it, and then later when you don't provide suggestions, they are confused, right? So building that good habit, those good habits. And specifically coming to this point, after some time, they will start telling you that, I think this session I am progressing like this, because they already understand that this, you have been walking through them the same process over and over and over. What you do that by doing that, um, repetitive patterns, right? So what you do is creating those neural pathways, so that the moment they come to the coaching session, they are used to that process. So they know that I am now on this path. I think I have developed so and so and so. At some point, client may invite sharing. So this is why ICF is being very conscious, very mindful, because when you start developing that embodiment of coaching mindset in clients, they automatically start demonstrating these good habits, right? So if when that happens, coach need to take a step back and now you take the flow, because you already know what is happening here, right? Beautiful. Now let's say coach invite the client to explore progress. Now this is coaches not only just exploring the progress, how far we have come in this coaching engagement or in this particular session. This truly means, if you remember that last two sessions we discussed peak moments, right? We said peak movements can spark actions, um, emotions, feelings, passions, decisions. Those things can evoke from a peak moment, because a peak moment truly means an aha moment. And we also said it doesn't necessarily mean all positive and happy and fluffy. It can also mean fear, uh, something like lack of confidence or understanding lack of resources, something like that. It's not always, although I don't want to label things positive or negative, it can have that effect, right? So here is an example. So the reason why we explore the progress is because client, as a result of having one of those peak moments, an aha moment or a breakthrough, clients, even the entire vision can change. Their goal completely, that big vision they set for themselves, can change, right? So it's very important we explore with the client so far. This is so at the beginning of the session, coaches, this at PCC level, if you're preparing yourself for PCC, this is a demonstration. You must demonstrate this halfway through the coaching session. Okay, session for the day, halfway through the session, you must stop and inquire with the client. At the beginning of the session, you repeat the goal back to the client and use exact words. You say, this is what you wanted to work towards today. And these are the actions that you said you would like to walk away with. So you remind them the goal. You also remind them the measure of success, because it's not my goal. It's the goal that they set for themselves, right? So you remind that, and then you ask, in terms of achieving this goal, reaching our outcome today, how do you see our progress so far? Then client can see, oh, I have come this far. I think I'm whatever the client want to say. Now, here is an example, coaches. Now, this could be a bit of an extreme situation, but I think this is a very good example why ICF has implemented this, why we have this specific marker, the importance of it, right? So, for example, I had a client, this was about 3 months ago, 4 months ago now. And the reason she came to me is because she had problems with her husband. And she came and she said, I don't want to break the family. I want to work our marriage out for the sake of our children. I have two young children, very small children. One is 7, the boy is 7, the girl is 3. So very, very small children. And she said, I have two very small children and I do not want to break my marriage. I want to give it a try. I want to work this out. I said, okay. So we started working, and it was purely coaching. Of course, there are other certain elements in terms of education, facilitation, and so on. But this was self-reflective. She wanted to understand what she can do uh, to do this. And then the plan was to also bring the husband, and then soon she realized that he's not open to it. So from the very beginning, we could see that it was only one side that was trying to work it out, right? But it wasn't something I pointed out. She herself pointed out at some point, and she said, you see, even to come to this coaching engagement, it's only still one-sided, and I'm the only one trying. But it's okay for me to try because I have two children, and this is not for me and him. This is for the children. I don't want my children to grow up without a father. This was her reason, right? So we need to respect clients' experience. We need to respect the clients, whatever that, regardless what we see. All we can do is provide catalyzing the process, right? So we had few sessions, and then in one session, it was she had very strong emotions showing up. She discussed very deep personal things about her partner and the relationship dynamics. And she had this at the beginning, she was very angry. She had a lot of anger showing up. She talked about it a lot. She had some interesting words that she had to let it out her system and all that. She had a good cry, many emotions. Like it's like was like literally like ocean. we went through lot of different emotions, and at some point she went silent, like pin drop silent, right? I was like, okay, something is cooking now. Something is going to explode, because she's very quiet, and I know her by then. I knew her, so she took some time. She took a step back, and she was thinking, and then she said, "I think I know what to do."
Be careful
Victoria,
of a silent woman. Yeah, be careful of a silent woman. I've heard that so much. Like that's the most thing. Sorry.
you see the silent moment, right? The important, you see, coaches, it's true, Victoria, the importance of that, being able to be in that silence. It was so uncomfortable because we had like explosions, right? And then all of a sudden she's silent. I'm like, what do I do now? What do I do now? Like, keep it, because this is what she needs. Okay. And then she was dead serious. She said, I think I know what I want to do. I have been trying so hard all this time, thinking that being with him is going to save my children. And because I didn't want to bring family, I didn't blah, 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 all that. And she said, now I realize that actually how unhealthy this environment is for me and for my children. And I think by sticking together, staying in this family, I am creating more damage to my children than asking for a divorce. Because if I do that, I will go away, but I will work on that gap. I will work on that attachment, that missing part, separation. I will work with the therapist or whatever the support I need to provide. But I think that's a better, uh, compared to the damage that is ongoing here. That's a less damage, and that was that. The decision was made, coaches. Of course, she didn't confirm to me immediately that she said, I need to go home and I'm going to think about this more. But I think this is the right decision for me. And I could see this is also why, coaches, I mentioned earlier that when we listen to our clients, we are not listening to their words, because sometimes someone could just say it. You just sometimes say things, but you don't really mean it. But really actively listening, you really listen to the soul of the client. You are listening to the energy, and her energy was dead. She was serious. She knew what this is. She knew she had to do it. She knew that the time has come, that it's over, that it's the time to let go, walk away with her kids. So you see, her initial goal was what? Saving the family, being together with her partner. And then throughout few sessions, she had these realizations. She decided, this is not working out for me. This is bad. So now my direction is changing. So did she make progress towards the initial goal? She didn't. She didn't achieve her initial goal, but did she make progress? Oh, yeah, she did. Absolutely. And actually, in fact, she's from Switzerland. She's moving back to Switzerland. And she's based in Bangkok right now because her husband is working here, but she's leaving to Switzerland in 2 days on 16. And it took her about good 3 months to wrap everything up. And it just flew. The flow was so smooth. Of course, it wasn't smooth for her to go through that, but the actions came much faster the moment she made the decision, right? So this is what happened, coaches. When this is why we ask the client, stop in the middle of the session and look back and ask, where are we now? How do you feel? What do you think about how we are progressing towards your initial goal, right? So please have that in mind. This is a must at PCC, not expected at ACC. At the same time, you are invited to do it. Now you know uh, that this is something that bring your practice to the next level. So do it. And then if you look at the point now, Victoria.
Sorry, Lex. May I just then ask the technical question here? So before we were talking about, I'm talking about the PCC level, but having a goal, SMART goal established by the minute 15. So in technical terms, that means that between minute 15 and minute 30, if it's a 1 hour session, we would explore further. So raise awareness parts with different questions, different approaches, and so on. And then somewhere by the minute 30, we would do this assessment. So ask the client how we're progressing towards their goal, and then see if the goal stays the same or whatever the client comes up with. And then the client feels confident that we're working in the right direction, so that we evoking awareness, right? And going towards action steps.
That's right, Victoria. Your understanding is correct. So we set the goal. So we understand once we set the goal, client has already evoked their awareness because then they set the goal and then we deepen that awareness. So what does this goal really mean to you? And you will see during that evoking awareness part, exploring part, the actions will already start emerging, right? So this is why halfway to the session, stop and check, where are we now? Our goal is this, these are your actions, and now actions are emerging. So what is happening? What is next? Where are we now? Usually coaches, because my sessions are about 90 minutes, I at least stop at 3 steps and to check where we are now. I just really want to make sure that we are heading to the direction that they want to head towards. So about 3 stops, I ask them, so this is where we are now. What do you think about it? Um, Still going to the same direction again. Because also some actions can divert the conversation towards something else, right? So always come back to that point and asking the client, how have we progressed so far? Yeah. Okay. So the point 8.2 is coach invites the client to state or explore the client's learning in the session about themselves, the who. Now you see, ICF is very focused on the client's development, not just the situation, not the narrow vision, but the whole person. Because the person who is achieving that goal is a person, a whole person. So that's what the transformation should begin with, right? So what does this mean? As with the client take actions, as the client deepen their awareness, a question that needs to occur here is, let's say the client is taking an action. How do we demonstrate point 8.2?
So my usual question is, how does this change the way you think about yourself, or the way you view yourself, the way you see yourself?
I love that question. How does this change the way you see yourself? Great question, Victoria.
I have a good example. I just yesterday had a session with someone. It's a mother, parents, and mother or father or whoever. And the topic was kind of a parental topic, but there was a moment of speaking about braveness in the past. So the word brave was introduced in the conversation, and then came that question for me. So now speaking about yourself as brave in the past, how does that maybe change the way you view yourself? And then there was like, oh God, I'm a brave person. That there was that moment. So the client usually brings something that you can then address that, or a right moment where you can put that question.
Absolutely, Victoria. Amazing. I'm so happy. You see, this is why the developing these skills, you see how beautifully you can catalyze that transformation in a person. It doesn't take so much to do that. It just takes that one intentional, thoughtful question. This is also why I said, coaches, in my mentoring sessions, my supervision sessions, um, my coach, if Benita or Fernando or whoever I'm working with, if they don't if they're taking the coach's approach, very few questions, but very thoughtful, very intentional, the right question at the right time. That's what it means. So when we talk about powerful questions, remember we said it doesn't have to be complicated and very using heavy, difficult words. It can be the simplest question, but something that is transformative, right? So here, like what Victoria said, how does this change the way you see yourself? How has your internal belief system changed by taking this action? What did you learn about yourself as a person as you're taking this action? Right? What do you know about yourself now that you didn't know before? Oh, you see, coaches, we are bringing the client to who? Who am I? how would your emotional state change by taking this action or by doing this? What would happen to your thinking pattern? What would happen to um, your if the client is talking about, let's say, even their past self, the child inside them, right? Sometimes parents say things like they talk about the inner child. We are not talking about inner child work. We don't talk about, we are not going into therapy and going in clients' past. But if they are playful, if they speak metaphorically, like for example, when I speak with Karen's mom, Yvonne, I always ask her, so what has happened to that fire in your heart? It usually tell her something that she's motivated, she's excited, she's calm, some quality, right? So ask your clients those kind of questions. And this is why I said coaching after sometimes become addictive. People want to keep working with you because no one asks anyone these kind of strange questions. At the beginning, they will be like, what kind of strange? She's, she's asking this question. And then they go home and they think, what an interesting, weird question, but how interesting what I'm thinking right now about myself, how it's changed. And this is when they turn around and say, it's like magic. How do you do it? And they don't realize you don't do anything. You just only ask the right question. That's all it takes. They are doing the magic because they are the magic, right? Beautiful. Anything to add there, Victoria, before we move to the 8.3?
Yeah, I just said that you don't do magic. We just ask the right question. What if you add also at the right time? Because I've also learned that, one same question doesn't have different for different parts of the coaching session or the moment you're finding.
Exactly. And also, gorgeous, it's so beautiful when you ask clients these kind of questions, the answers that they come up with. It's so poetic. Sometimes the things that people think about, the way people think, it's so beautiful. It's like they really truly reveal their heart and soul to you when you connect with them, right? Especially imagine asking questions like this from minors, from a young age, being able to bring that awareness back to themselves. So this is what I said. The deeper meaning is creating intentional, compassionate, thoughtful human beings. That's what you truly are doing. That's what you are catalyzing, not achieving that goal that they think they are achieving, right? So, looking at 8.3, coach invites the client to state or explore the client's learning in the session about their situation, the what. So, you see, we clearly differentiate the two. Who? The person who is going through the situation, and then the situation, which is what. So, then what would this look like, Victoria, in that case?
Similar to 8.2 with the first mentioning now the situation. So my usual question is, how does this change if it changes the way you now see blah blah whatever the situation is? Let's say your child's clinginess towards you, if we discuss some of the major changes or have shared some kind of expertise about jobs. So mostly like how does this change your lens? Or if you look into your child's eyes, how does that feel? Even it's not the seeing, but about feeling. How do you even feel about that?
Beautiful. It's similar to the previous one, but this time we focus on the situation at hand, right? So we can turn all those questions into what. So by taking this action, um, what do you learn about your approach to this situation, right? What do you think about now that having that new perspective? What do you think about how you are managing this situation? Right? What do you think about the situation? What do you see in this situation now that you didn't see before? Right? Questions like that. So you bring the awareness, new learning. It has to evoke learning, coaches. This is why. See competency, facilitate clients' growth. How do we grow? By learning, right? When we learn, we grow. So it needs to evoke a learning insight for the client, because we need to remember what they share with you, it doesn't die down there. They're going to take it with them. They're going to remember that, right? Whatever they learn about themselves and the situation, they're going to remember that. And then 8.4, coach invites the client to consider how they will use new learnings from this coaching session onwards. What does that mean?
For me, that usually means if the situation repeats itself, what would you do differently? Or are there any alternative, or what are the alternative approaches to the situation that you can now see or think of? Or based on what we've discussed in today's session, what is the main insight that would help you consider things?
That's right. Right. So we literally invite the client to consider, how would you use this new learning in the future? Because it's not just this situation in life that they will have to face this kind of encounter. They will encounter these kind of challenges, right? They will in the future, of course, face some similar challenges. Now think about it from working with minors, helping them to understand, developing, especially learning from their mistakes, right? It's okay. Yes, you made a mistake. That's fine. What did you learn from it? And what did you learn by overcoming this challenge? Ah, that's a great insight. So how do you think you can use this particular learning in the future? Let's say you are again challenged with a child who is learning, maybe to defend themselves by assertively speaking, right? Maybe a minor who is facing social challenges. They identified that they can assertively speak and say, stop, I don't want you to do that to me, or something. Learn how to protect, right? Especially children who experience maybe bullying, something like that. How would you use this in the future? Right? The minor might come up, or the idea is in the future, when that happens, once again, they can defend themselves, because we know coaches, for example, if we look at bullying and helping children learn from those challenging situations, we know that bullying doesn't end in schools, right? Well, bullying starts at home and then it continues to school. And we know that it doesn't stop there. We know that there are bullies in families. We know that there are bullies in work environments. There are bullies everywhere. Although I don't like to call someone bullying, because no one is a born bully, we know that there are people who can bulldoze you. So when you work with a minor, our intention is not only to help the child that overcome that particular social challenge. We are training them, we are teaching them, we are strengthening those social competencies, that in the future, as an adult, when someone try to cross their boundary, they know how to say no. This is where you stop. Why? I do it so effectively because I learned that as a child. So as an adult, it comes to me naturally. So imagine helping a parent understand the depth of why they are doing what they are doing with their child. That should be the focus, coaches, right? So, I mean, of course, the minor is not able to tell you that part, that, oh, in the future, as an adult, they wouldn't know that. But this is something that, as feedback, sometimes when I play the mentor role, I tell them. So I first ask their learning, and then I strengthen that by saying, so this is a great learning for you, because it's not only helping you now, but even as an adult in the future, you already have the skills to deal with situations like that. How do you feel about that now? So we also build that self confidence in them, that they know, oh, I have the tools to protect myself. I'm a good, stable individual. I'm a well rounded individual. So you are also strengthening that part of the development of the minor, right? Okay, now we look at 8.5, coach partners with the client to design post-session thinking, reflection, or action. Now, this is quite straightforward, isn't it? Yeah. So by looking at it, Victoria, anything you'd like to add?
I was just thinking, post-session action, that's what we usually focus on. But in terms of post-session thinking, again, I recently had a session where the part of the problem or what needed to be over, whether the client needed to overcome to reach the goal was the thinking pattern, way her brain would fall into certain patterns that she would avoid. So this is where the question happened of post-session thinking. So when you catch yourself thinking in the way that you don't want to be thinking, what can you do to help yourself? What are the tools that you already have? And so we now kind of come to 8.6 resources, but what tools do you already have to help yourself think differently? And in terms of reflection, sometimes, I don't know if this is ICF aligned, you tell me. Sometimes if there is a question that I think hasn't been addressed, which is it's there's only 60 minutes or so, sometimes it and if it's like almost like an additional aspect, I would invite the clients, not suggest advice or anything, but invite the client when you reflect on that question, that we can then, if we continue with the same topic, keep working. So that their brain, their mind keeps working in the direction that we already established in the current session.
Great thoughts, Victoria. Very, very good thoughts. I like that structure. And in terms of post session thinking and reflection specifically, sometimes we also know that when we have an inspired thought and we have explored that, we go home and we have more thinking, more actions, more strategy, more clarity, right? This is why, usually, as again, without creating that codependency, however, in my practice, because especially when we work with minors, so here is the difference, right? As an adult client, a parenting client, will be able to decide the post-session thinking, reflections, and actions. Now, this is little bit different with, not little bit, this is different with minors because these needs to be strategized and structured already. So with when they work with me, they already, it's not just that the actions that they say they would take. In some client situations, I give them an online platform where they need to journal every single day. What happened? What was the result? How did it go? Especially because think about coaches, when you work with children and adolescents, they need to repeat the same thing over and over. So the frequency is shorter, right? We need to do it often rather than taking longer breaks because that's how we strengthen those neural pathways that's being built. So it's important that you design the post sessions in a way that they are also able to interact. For example, if you remember, of course, I didn't go too deep into it with Karen, but if you remember, I had this collaborative, the jam board. So I would give her some tasks that I can see it from back end, what she's doing. So she knows I'm watching, right? So some kind of accountability there and some interaction there so that the client has external support so that they can solidify what they are learning here. Now on the other hand, with adult clients,
Reason. Sorry, let's joining. I don't know if you see that the screen.
oh, is Sasha joining?
I,
Oh,
Teresa.
Teresa.
Right.
Hi,
I'm
Teresa.
sorry.
Oh,
I have never overslept in my life, but I somehow seem to do it for this 4 a.m.
all right. So I was saying the reflection and post session thinking, we can also have the similar structure. For example, for Karen's mom, she also has like a list of questions that she can put in, but it's not daily because our sessions are every other week. It's quite a gap. So anytime she feels like she want to note down anything, I have prepared a platform for her so that she can go and do that. And then in terms of action, and this is just how I do it, coaches, right? Because I like to provide that external support to my client, because it's also a selling point for me, because the client see, oh my God, there is so much support here. I want to be part of this program, right? That's how I like to serve my client to the fullest. At the same time, when we look at it from the competency perspective, what the coach's responsibility is to help the client design, when I go home, how would I think about this better? Right? So I would literally ask a question. So when, as you go home, how would you further reflect on what we have discussed today? How would you think deeper into what some of those insights that you shared with me today? Then the client might say, oh, I like to journal, I will take a journal, or I don't know, some clients are very creative, right? They will come up with their ideas, and then it's the same thing with action. So action, we already discussed that it's a separate section that we help the client come up with certain actions. This is what we discussed last week. And then 8.6, coach partners with the client to consider how to move forward, including resources, support, or potential barriers. And if you,
Sorry,
Victoria?
let's go back to 8.5 before you go further. I have a question about it. So my question would be, for example, in recording for the whatever HCP, we were to only discuss designing the actions for a client in the series. Would that be enough, or would we need to show that we design both thinking and reflection in leaders to fully lead this market?
Victoria, I couldn't hear properly the last bit. If you can just, yeah, sorry.
Sure. So in order to meet this marker for the recording, whether it's the recording for certification or the recording for ACC or BCC accreditation, would we need to show that we partner with the client to design, for example, only action, or do we have to show that we've designed post-session thinking and reflection and action to fully meet the client? So if I only discuss actions with the client that they can be roughly just for in between difference, would that fully meet the marker, or would I also need to ask a question about the response?
Good question, Victoria. You're asking really good questions, some things that I miss out. So thank you for picking those things from my mind. It's very useful. At ACC level, actions is enough. You're expected to design actions, but at PCC level, because you are more experienced, right? So you can also take the client even further, not stopping with actions. You can also ask, so how are you going to think about what you decided today, this decision, this particular decision, especially if the client say, I need to think about it in the session. You can pick that up later and you could say, you said earlier you want to think about it. So how does this look like thinking about it? Or if you would like to reflect about some of these breakthroughs, the new perspective you had today, what would it look like to you? Reflecting it further, so that you even help the client there to make that an action, right? So good question, Victoria, again. So at ACC level, you can go with action, but PCC level, post thinking and also reflection. I mean, you don't have to stop at action. Now that you know it, go for it. Sorry. And then we move to coach partners with the client to consider how to move forward, including resources, support, and potential barriers. This is what we discussed in the previous session. We will look at it again. So I'm not going to go too deep into it because we're going to look at it again later, right? So literally, what does this action look like? What resources do you need? What support do you need? And what are the challenges in terms of taking this action? Because sometimes we think, oh, I can take that action, I can take this action, but we also know, or every action we think that we can take are not actionable. Some actions are not actionable in that right moment because we don't have either the right resources, we don't have the right support system. For example, let's say someone wants to become a certain profession, but maybe they don't have the right skill set or the education. So we know that I want to do that, but it doesn't mean I can do that because I lack skill set. So I first need to develop the skill set in order for me to do what I want to do, right? So we need to also help the client to get to that.
If I may
8.7,
just
coach.
add something, sorry, if I may just add something here, I think especially, or that's my experience so far, especially in parental coaching, the question about what support you have to work towards your own parental goal, but especially if this is a goal that's kind of related to minors' well-being, it's really important to get the client to understand what support system they have for this. The parental visioning session is that part. It is doing exactly that. What resources they have within themselves, perhaps, and around, but also what supports, who else is involved, without having these people in a way accountable, because after all, it's our client's goal, but still understanding that they cannot operate, they don't operate in a vacuum, and they don't parent in a vacuum. They might need support from extended family or the system or whatever it is, but there's the support is around, and it's advisable that they make use of that to help them reach their goal.
Very true, Victoria, spot on. We know that when we work with minor clients, uh, they can sometimes take those actions because they are not in power. They don't have the independency to take that action by themselves. So this means the resources, the support, the potential barriers, all these things need to be solved with parents. So this is why I keep saying if we are just working with them with a minor client, it's almost impossible to create that transformation because nothing comes from them. They have no power. They are so dependent on their caregivers. And this is why the caregiver involvement is necessary. And this is why coaches, this is child adolescent development and parenting coaching, because there is no child adolescent development without the parents' involvement. This is what I all at the beginning said of the everything, that parenting is, it's two side, it's like the two sides of the same coin, the child development and parenting. We can't separate the two unit, right? So bringing these elements, and not only that, we will explore this in accountability system. This is also why coaches, we kept on talking about the ecology of parenting, looking at the different systems. Because when we say resources, when we say support, it's not just the family, sometimes it can also be the educators. It can also be other support professionals that need to be involved, right? All sort of things. So very, very important to have those things in mind. And then 8.7, coach partners with the client to design the best methods of accountability for themselves, which is what we are going to look at today. So I'm not going to address that particular point because we will look at what it means. And then the coach celebrates the client's progress and learning. What would this look like?
The standard phrasing that comes to my mind is, look how far you've come into meeting your goal or what you've learned today. General words of encouragement, and to my still kind of great surprise, but sometimes this would also be addressing the blind spots of the client. Sometimes they're progressing without even understanding they're progressing. And I'm not even talking to my minor clients. I'm talking mostly about parents, non-parental adults, where they also kind of stop, oh my God, yeah, you know, good for me, I've achieved that. So yeah, just being happy with them. Sometimes for me, that means inviting them to also see that they're progressing and learning. But sometimes it's when they mention that or they recognize that, just share happiness with us, smile when they smile, generally authentically be happy with them. And for ourselves, because we're kind of partners in the process. So if they're making progress and they're learning, we've also done something well.
I love it,
So really
Victoria.
taking a moment, making space for celebration before looking back and seeing how far we've gone, how far we've come.
Very true. I love that so much because it's so true that very often we so focused on what we don't do right, all the mistakes that we make and the actions that we didn't take, the times that we failed. We are so hard. Believe it or not, coaches, forget about other people. We are so hard on ourselves. We put so much pressure on ourselves and we actually give ourselves very, very little credit for what we are really doing. Sometimes even waking up in the morning, getting up and just doing the bare minimum that day, especially a parent. It's a big deal. Imagine if it's a parent who is maybe also battling some kind of um, mental health condition like depression. And many people go through that, or even anxiety, just general anxiety. Imagine you wake up, you have kids, and you just do it. And imagine how much a parent would parent parents feel guilty for not doing so much for their children. They often, this is one of the biggest challenges in parents. Almost every parent, I've spoken to hundreds of parents, especially also as an educator in my early career. It's so shocking to see how much parents blame themselves. The self blame is the worst when they are a parent themselves. It's so sad, right? So our job is to show them that you have done a lot today. And how do you celebrate? Like Victoria said, I love that. Genuinely, deliberately taking a moment to realize, oh, I have accomplished this. Even if they haven't accomplished such big, dramatic something, even that one action that they decided, that one reflection, that one quality that they identified about themselves, make a big deal out of it, coaches. Truly, I usually make a big deal out of those moments, not like over exaggerate and go crazy about it. Genuinely, right? Not this. When I say make a big deal about it, I don't mean like be unauthentic and inauthentic and like uh, be very genuine. At the same time, put the highlight on that. Put the highlight on that, right? You accomplish this, right? Sometimes, if it's the right time, I even, especially with minor clients, I even tell them, I'm proud of you. I'm proud how the efforts that you made today, right? So something like that, making sure that we don't create that codependency in terms of receiving our validation. But the bigger vision here, coaches, um, and letting them see that I am capable. This is what it means to also promote autonomy. I came up with these ideas. How amazing is that? I accomplished this, right? So sometimes I even ask the client, it's a great achievement. How are you planning to celebrate this accomplishment that you decided, you came up with these actions? Karen's mom, once she told me, oh, after all these reflections, I think I'm going to go and have a massage today. Right? Sometimes clients come up, it's that's so good. Go do that. Treat yourself, right? When you do it minus, what do we really do here? We build that self efficacy in them. We make them realize that, oh, I am capable of achieving my own goals. I am capable of coming up with my own actions. I am capable of overcoming challenges. So you see, we don't need to send children to develop confidence later, self confidence, because we are already building that autonomy in them. We help them build that self efficacy in them. This is where also the self motivation comes from, because we show them that reward mechanism. Right? We show them that when I achieve something good, it makes me feel good. And I am doing it not because I have to do it and I have to be perfect. It's because that I love doing that. I love the person I'm becoming through this process, right? Because they talk about the learning, they talk about all the value that they are creating. All right. The last point is the coach partner
Sorry,
with the client. Sorry,
sorry,
Victoria.
if I may, I'm interrupting a lot, but
Please, please.
there was recently like almost a joking video about the new age parenting or whatever, but there were some actually important moments from it. So one of that was that difference between the older generation, or whatever, the very old generation previous to you, haven't ever said compounding to the youngsters, and then came the generation that was so proud of you, but that still um hasn't led to intrinsic motivation for kids, because they, as we grow up, then we want to just make others proud of us. So I think like the gist of that video was that the new tendency is to make children understand that they should be proud of themselves. So with that, I'm proud of you. Aren't you proud of yourself? How proud must you be? And then, if you see that with adults, they're like, I'm proud of myself. Am I not proud of myself? I should be proud of myself. So that also kind of, you work on that intrinsic motivation that people feel good because they feel good inside, not just because someone else feels good for them, or yeah, because of what they've done. I
Very,
think
very,
especially for minors, that's really important.
very important, Victoria. Absolutely very important. I think also a creative way to do that is um, also demonstrating, role modeling it. Sometimes, like casually, I would say, I have been struggling with this challenge and I overcame it, and I'm very proud of myself how I did it. So I would just casually just throw it out there. I want them to see that it's
Yeah.
okay to be proud of oneself.
Yeah, that's not arrogant or in any way bad, because for some that also might be the idea that it's bragging.
Exactly. And of course, when we do that, it's not to make it about myself and talk about myself. It's just that one little nugget just to put it out there so that we show them, we resonate with them, but also really asking, how do you feel? Right? Like you must be feeling very proud. How do you feel? So we kind of plan that it's okay to be proud of something like that, but we also explore that how do you feel about it? Right? So they also might think, oh yeah, I actually feel very proud about it. Something like that. Right. And then the last point, coach partners with the client on how they want to complete this session. Now, here, coaches, be mindful because this is the end of the session and you might not want to open a new discussion or anything like that. So, we always have to be very careful how you close the session. So, usually, what I do is I know that some coaches make the client go through the entire session and repeat everything and key points and so on, which is good. It's I'm sorry. What I meant to say is that sometimes the coach tend to provide the summary and then we end the session. However, um, it's always good to invite the client to share a summary of the session, any key points or anything like that. Because they had to go through the entire process and they even strengthen their learning and they provide you a summary. Actually, they are providing a summary for themselves. You are just the soundboard, right? So because you asked the question. And even with minor clients, this is a practice that I have from the very beginning, and I find it to be very useful because they know that I'm not going to tell them what happened in the session. They need to remember. It's your goal. You must work. This is something I learned from the very beginning. Never work harder than the client because the client is the one who is achieving the goal. If I am to provide them autonomy, provide that empowerment, client has to take that action. So even their embodiment of coaching mindset, right? And then once the client has shared their updates, I will then, their key points, then I will say, in case if something was missing, then I will say, oh, by the way, you also said this, you also said that, you also did that. And now what do you see? Right. So that's one way to wrap the session. And then I would say, how do you feel about calling it a session for today? Right. And then usually this has happened to me several times with Karen, especially the last few sessions. I haven't uploaded them yet because there is still a lot to go through. So I thought I will upload them in two parts. And sometimes she would tell me also the sessions that I don't record. She would say, when I close the session, when I ask, how do you feel about closing the session today? Or shall we close the session? Shall we say goodbye to each other? She would say, oh, I have this other thing I want to share with you. Oh, by the way, I forgot to tell you this. She would say something like that. And not just Karen, it happens with minor clients because they like to talk to you so much and they will want to share more things with you, right? So this is why coaches, I encourage sometimes having that buffer time can really be helpful because you do not want to shut them down immediately, so that you can spare a few minutes and listen to it and then say some. So usually how I would handle it and would say, oh, I'm so looking forward to hear about this even more next week or something like that, right? So that you don't shut them down. but you acknowledge it at the same time. Be mindful of your time. Right. Victoria, anything to add there? I don't hear you at the moment. Oh.
Sorry, I think my internet dropped.
Oh, okay. All right. Is there anything that you would like to add to 8.9?
Maybe with a question. As always. But the question would be, how aligned is it with the markers or the in general the ICF to complete the session by asking for the insight or the main insight instead of going through the notes for the session? Because I sometimes struggle with time, especially when I'm recording, and I see we don't have time for client to go through everything to search for their notes because that can take us many, many minutes. So if I do that, it's faster. I understand that's not optimal, but still kind of wrapping up that it's a partnership. But I would then ask, do you have something to add or something along these lines? So yeah, how does that work? Is that okay?
Yes, Victoria, it's okay. I think the best is to start wrapping the session in about like before like 10 minutes uh, closing the session. Usually that's what I do because when it takes some time for them to speak, and also be mindful of how much usually the clients speak, right? There are clients that they speak a lot. You ask one question and they have a lot to share, which is completely okay. That's why they are there. They are paying you to talk. And then there are other clients, they are very precise in what they say. It's just how they speak, right? They are very probably organized and they just say and precise, and that's it. Not very reflective and sharing emotions and so on. And that, I don't want to say not very reflective, but maybe that's what their reflections are, right? So depending on how much, and also it doesn't mean that they are not reflective. Sometimes client could be reflecting, but not just verbalizing them also. So see how much the clients speak. But for me, usually I start around 10 minutes before the session closing so that the client has, they share, I share. And then if there is anything like minor clients, oh, I have this also, I want to tell you, so that we can take another 5 minutes in case if we need to stay a little bit longer.
And asking for the main insight for the session, would that also question count as a partner with client to complete the session? So say for my closing time, we're wrapping up here. Before we close the session, what's your biggest insight you take from the session? So would that meet this marker? It would meet other markers, but would it meet this one?
Yes. Yes, Victoria. So I would usually approach this. This is where. So I think this whole conversation, this part of the conversation, at least is going to take good 15 minutes. So it's really important that you manage your time, right? Depending on the client. So when I say 10 minutes, it's a client that who speaks a regular amount a person speak. But it's good to have some extra time, like a 15, at least 15 minutes, so that you can also include what value have you created from this? What value are you taking apart from the action points, right? So what value have you gained from this session today? Right? All those things. And then also connecting it with the updates, the key points, and all that. Yeah. So it's about managing the time, how much I might need, so that you know that the reason why I'm saying this, coaches, sometimes we can really get into a bad habit of extending the session. And you cannot be doing that when you are financially operating, because sometimes you will have back-to-back client. I at least have a 20-minute buffer time because it's quite draining to speak for 90 minutes and then again to speak. That's a lot of talking. So sometimes I have a lot of gap in between. But time management is absolutely crucial. So really understand where do you need to start wrapping the session.
Another question is, I'm thinking, I'm reading this article again, and it says how they want to complete session. So, uh, is it almost like advisable to literally ask the client, how would you like to us to spend the last, say, 10 minutes of the session? So is it that kind of freedom that also needs to be given to the client to give this part?
Usually, Victoria, it's better that this part is it doesn't mean that coach is leading, but it's better to have a bit of structure, because if we keep it too open to the client, they might start talking about a new goal. They might go back into something that they forgot to share in the session, something like that. It's good to give them the freedom of asking like how you would like to end, but the thing is that they wouldn't necessarily know how to effectively end it. Or actually asking something like that, it could also help them. Maybe something to add to it, maybe what you can do is asking, how would you like to end the session? Is there anything that you would like to particularly do for us? Like, for example, some clients like to ground themselves, do a little bit of a visualization, um, say a few, maybe even a prayer. There are clients who actually stop and say a prayer, so that we don't know what it is for them, right? So it's a great approach. Ask the client, is there anything that you would like to do, particularly as we are ending the session? And then I would even give them some examples, something like maybe you want to ground yourself, maybe you want to visualize a little bit, something like that. Yeah, good idea. Right. So we do have the accountability. No, I want to now share the action things that we need to remember when we strategize actions with minor clients. But before that, let's take a 5 minutes break, because we have been discussing a lot. And yeah, so I'll see you in 5 minutes, Victoria. All right, coaches. So we are coming back from a 5 minute break, and I'm going to start sharing the screen so that we can dive into it. Victoria, as I said earlier, let's have a conversation so that it's not just the screen.